Okay, bonjour TEDx. I met Ghada Adari just outside of Mosul, Iraq, by the side of the road. In 2013, it was one of the most dangerous cities in the world. But she was going paragliding.
You have never flown from this high up?
Yes. This will be the first time.
What are you thinking?
Nothing. I say, I think I'll be afraid. I try it. And may God be with me. Good luck, Rada.
She was 42 years old, recently divorced, and had just taken up flying. She said when she was up there, she forgot everything bad. I was there as a journalist for the BBC, exploring the state of the country 10 years after the American invasion. When we met, it was an instant connection, despite our very different lives. As we picnicked on delicious Mosuli food and joked about how a man's heart was like the wind, changeable, I immediately connected with her positivity, with her adventurous spirit. Anyone meeting her or the rest of the Falcon Aviation Club would admire their desire to be free, to enjoy life. And that gave me a conduit to connect audiences very far away with Mosul's fall into Islamist militancy, something they could open up to, rather than closing off and dismissing it as another Middle East war story. And it worked. So many people told me they were rooting for Ghada and her friends. And that's how I've spent most of my adult life, traveling to places that seemingly have little in common with anywhere else. As a foreign journalist, I have been to the most extreme extremes of war and peace, wealth and poverty, hope and despair. And it has been my job, my vocation, to try and tell stories that transcend those extremes and create a deeper understanding. Now, I think it's fairly common for a lot of us to think that most people, probably most other people, right, can't truly care about people whose perspectives or lives are so different from our own or from our own self-interest. And in these polarized times, we can be forgiven for believing, or at least fearing, I know I do, that the yawning chasms which divide us cannot be bridged. But I don't believe that. Though it is rarely about how right you are, or reason, or policy. In my experience, time and time again, it is when you find the point, the tender, open point that connects any two people, that is your lever for change. And you have to lean into it. When I've made a film that's ended up having a big impact, I've always said I can feel it in my body. It's a resonance. I can feel the heart of a story beating. And my job is to follow it. But this isn't just my superpower, although that would be cool, and I might choose a few more. It's something that you can do too, no matter what you do or what arena you're in. Be present. Stay open. Look for the human thing that connects you with someone else. And I mean, often those are things that are really easily dismissed as not serious enough. You know, humor, music, my personal favorite, sharing pictures of our pets. They work. And so does emotion. Because we all get feelings like joy and grief. We understand rites of passage, like losing a parent or becoming one. In 2009, I was in northern Afghanistan, up in Badakhshan. At the time, that was the worst place in the world to give birth if you wanted to live. Maternal mortality rates were 600 times higher than in the United States. And my team and I had traveled to the remotest village in the remote province with the only clinic for hundreds of miles. I mean, this remote with a capital R. It would take a woman hours to get there if she could even find a way to travel. And while we were there, nobody had come. When a woman was rushed in, her burqa stained with blood. Sadia had been at home bleeding for at least 12 hours when just by chance a midwife with a vehicle came by. They rushed her into the delivery room, which was little more than a clean table and clean instruments. And as a woman, I was allowed to follow and watch the doctor and the midwives try to save their lives. And in what seemed like forever, and the blink of an eye, it was over. They'd saved Sadia. The baby had died. I was sad. It's sad, right? But the overwhelming emotion in that room was relief. That surprised me. In my world, losing a child is one of the worst things that can happen. But in Shari Berg, people face challenges that would floor most of us daily. Babies often die. Mothers rarely survive. So Sadia said she felt lucky. She felt relieved. They all felt relieved because she had another chance. And that hit me right in the gut. And I knew it would connect with other people the same way. And it did. It raised money. It raised global awareness. But it did that because there is something that is so powerful, it is almost magic, about finding the point of shared connection, in this case, a woman in labor, and then shining a spotlight on where the perspectives diverge. Relief at a stillbirth. That is the alchemy that creates change, where an opening is made and perspectives can shift and new solutions can emerge. That combination is the alchemy we need. And I'll tell you, it's really important. If you tell only a sad story, it is never the whole story, and it loses some of its power. And it's always possible to make a connection. Anywhere. Although, I agree, sometimes it is harder than others. So, May 2011, Osama bin Laden has just been killed in Pakistan. I find myself in Karachi looking to speak with people who shared his worldview, which, as you can imagine, presented a number of challenges. Now, Karachi is a riotous, colorful city. I love it. But it's also a place where things can go fatally wrong quickly. So as we were on our way to the meeting, all my senses were on high alert. And as we drove up, I heard the sound of children laughing. And my blood pressure just dropped unconsciously. We arrived outside an Islamic school, and I could see our welcoming committee. Now, not a group of grim-faced young men in black, and I have met plenty of those. This was a group of smiling men holding an actual welcome banner wearing USA baseball caps. It was bizarre. And I assure you, we had not stumbled upon a meeting of the USA Jihadi Friendship Society, but these men were using symbols they thought we would understand. The presence of children, the baseball caps of their enemies, to signal to us that on this occasion we were safe. And however bizarre, we chose to be open to it. Now, this was not a meeting of the minds. They told us how the death of the Sheikh would not stop their fight against Western imperialism. We asked how they justified killing civilians. Not a meeting of the minds. But that connection allowed us to share with our audiences how the death of one man doesn't kill an ideology. So not bad. And we lived, which I think for me was the best part. Although for a few weeks after, I got love poems texted to me by one of the young jihadis. So sometimes you can communicate too effectively. It's very powerful. So powerful, it can light up cities, one block at a time. I've been on the ground when a few dictators have lost their grip. And from Egypt to Zimbabwe, it's really remarkable to witness how it happens. Because you go from one day, or I've gone from one day, hiding in a hotel room from the secret police, to being in the middle of a jubilant crowd with goosebumps all over my body the next. And I think it's that, when one person does something brave, it sparks something in a second person. And then I'm sure there's a mathematical term for this, but basically it quickly becomes bigger than itself. It becomes more than two. It becomes a crowd. It becomes a movement. Something really humbling about that to witness. Resonance can literally drive revolutions. Now, that doesn't mean that it is perfect or easy to maintain or build policy on, but you cannot deny its power. And that's why it's so important that each of us uses it to drive the beautiful and life-giving change that we want to see. Because like any power source, it is neutral. It can drive hope, and it can drive darkness. We've all seen that. We're all seeing that. That brings me back to Radha. Not long after we met, Mosul fell to the so-called Islamic State. I couldn't go in, Radha couldn't come out, and I worried about her because she was what they despised. But we still managed to keep in touch, mostly on Facebook, where I swear she liked every single photo of my cat. And I promise you there were a lot of them. And that and her spirit, I suppose, gave me a false sense of security. Because one morning I woke up to a stream of messages from her friends and family, from members of the Falcon Aviation Club, spread across the world. She was dead. Killed by Islamic State. That was 7 years ago, and I still feel a lead weight in my body when I talk about it to you. What happened to her was so unfair. So unjust. Something I wish the powers that be could have stopped. So why am I telling you her story in what is meant to be a hopeful speech? Why am I not giving you a happy ending, a feel-good moment, so we can walk out of here feeling amazing? Well, as you might be aware, things in the world seem pretty dire right now, right? the climate emergency, the Israel-Hamas war, the war in Ukraine. The list goes on and on. In these conflicts and crises, we see problems without solutions. And we see the common ground crumbling into the void. And again, it can be easy to feel, and I know I sometimes do, that it might be impossible to make meaningful change in the world. But I'm telling you Radha's story because it's not over. That meeting between her and I by the side of a road outside Mosul is still playing out right here, right now. That simple human connection is acting on me and acting on the world. We met while she was doing something that she loved. That spark connected us. And now I'm here doing something I love, hoping I'll make a connection with you. And that will spark something for the change you want to see. That you'll reach out to someone else, hopefully someone hard to reach. And what you find there will change something, and you will yourself be changed. And that goes on. Not often with much grace and glamour, always with heartache, and never in one fell swoop. But that very simple power, that very simple act of connection can lead to so much greater transformation. You can climb walls of apathy. You can knock over mountains of preconceived notions. It does not guarantee change. I know that. But it creates an opening. An opening where change can occur. Where we can step through to something new and better. Thank you.